interpret your answer in terms of prices. So here we have P plus Q, and 2P we know is P plus P, and if we're comparing these, since P is the bigger quantity, we're not quite to solving inequalities yet, but if you think about it, 1P on each side would basically cancel each other out or balance out, so we're really comparing Q and P, and since P is the bigger quantity, that means that 2P is going to be greater than P plus Q. Okay? Same thing over here in part B. Now it says P plus 0.05P and Q plus 0.05Q, so this would be an example of you getting a 5% tax on the price of the MP3 players. So the one that cost P dollars originally is P dollars plus 5% of P, and then this one over here would be Q dollars plus 5% of Q, and obviously we know that P is greater than Q, and 0.05P is going to be greater than 0.05Q, so the sum of these two right here will be greater, so we could put a greater symbol right there. In example C for example number 7, part C, now we're doing subtracting. Let's say you have $500 to buy an MP3 player, so if you do 500 minus P and 500 minus Q, which of these two is going to be the larger quantity? Well, this time it's going to be 500 minus Q, because you are subtracting a smaller quantity from 500, that means you're going to have more money left over. So this one here, 500 minus P, is going to be less than 500 minus Q because you're subtracting a smaller quantity on this side. Another thing that you'll see in this textbook a little bit is problems like this where they want you to rewrite something in a different form. So here it says, guess the possible values of x and y that make each expression have this form. X, the quantity x plus y, plus x times y, all of that over 2. So A is pretty obvious here. It's going to be 3 and 4 to have that same format. If you look at B, this might remind you a little bit of factoring, which we'll talk about later on, but two numbers that have a sum of 10 and a product of 21, and we know it has to have a sum of the two numbers and a product of those numbers, that's going to be 3 and 7. Okay? And the last one here, they throw a couple extra variables in. So if we take a look at this, 2r plus 3s and 6rs, so we know that we could say that x is going to be equal to 2r and y is going to be equal to 3s. Because the sum of those two, because they're not like terms, would be written like that, and the product of those two, you would just do 2 times r times 3 times s, 6rs. Okay, these last two examples, example 9 and example 10, are going to be a little more complex, so what I want you to do again is to pause the video here in a second, try to figure these out on your own, write them down on your notes, and then restart the video and see if your work matches up. So example 9 says a corporate bond has a face value of P dollars. So P is some amount. We don't know the exact amount, so that's why they're using a variable. The interest each year is 5% of the face value, which that was P dollars. After T years, the total interest is the product of the number of years, which is T, and the interest received each year. The payout is the sum of the face value and the total interest. So this is going to be used for part B down here where it says payout. So pause the video now and then restart it once you get your answer to A and B. Okay, now that you've done that, let's check your work. It says write an expression for the total interest after T years. So up here it says total interest in words is the product of the number of years. So I'm going to write this out in words first. The number of years multiplied by the interest received each year. And then the interest received each year is going to be broken down into two parts here. It's going to be the face value, and I'm going to abbreviate this, times the interest rate. All right, so if we take a look, the number of years is going to be T. All right, and we're going to, I wrote equals, but it's going to be multiplied by. So multiplied by the interest. So our face value is going to be that was given as P dollars, so T times P, and then the interest rate is 5%, so we're going to put 0.05. And typically you're not going to leave your final answer like that. We actually don't even need all those multiplication signs. Our final answer, and usually we write the numerical value in the front, so 0.05 times T times P. And it doesn't matter what order you put those variables in, but that's 5% multiplied by the time multiplied by P dollars, which was the face value. For part B, it says write an expression for the payout after T years. So up here, payout, it says, is the sum of the face value and the total interest. So we know that the face value is P, so you would get that money back, plus the total interest, which is what we just calculated up here. So we don't have to write all that again, or at least all the work to get that. We're going to just write 0.05 TP, and that's your final answer for the payout after T years. All right, example 10, the last one, and then we'll be done with section 1. So again, I'll read the problem and then tell you to pause it. I want you to try to set it up on your own, and then we'll go from there. A student's grade in a course depends on the homework grade, which they're going to call H, 3 test grades, T1, T2, and T3, and a final exam grade of F. That's not the grade they got, we're just calling it F for final exam. The course grade is the sum of 10% of the homework grade, 60% of the average of the 3 test grades, and then 30% of the final exam grade. Write an expression for the course grade. So go ahead, and after I write course grade, go ahead and pause your video so that we can have you calculate it on your own, then check with the work that I get. Okay, now that you're back, the course grade, it says, is the sum. So ultimately we know this is a big addition problem, and there are 3 parts to this addition problem: the homework grade, the average of the test grades, and the final exam. So I'm going to put my addition signs in here. So 10% of the grade, I'm going to write that as 0.10, is made up of your homework, right? So they call that H. The second part of your grade is 60%, so I'm going to write 0.60, and it's the average of the 3 test grades. So to do the average of the 3 test grades, I'm going to get rid of that addition sign for right now because I'm going to need a little more room. The average of the 3 test grades, you would add all of them up, T1 plus T2 plus T3, and you're going to divide by 3 because there are 3 tests. So this parentheses right here gives me the average of the test scores. Then I'm going to multiply that by 60%. Okay? And then the last part, 30%, is the final exam grade. So I'm going to add 0.30F, which was the exam score. And this entire expression here is how you could calculate your grade.